Welcome to the UCLA Pacific Islander Alumni Association Relaunch Information Session. And this is our second information session. We're hoping to go over some of the things that we are hoping to do with the relaunch of this network and some of the specific board positions that our network is seeking to fill as we prepare to relaunch.
So I'll go ahead and I'll do some quick introductions. My name is David Sun. I use he, him pronouns. I currently serve as the Interim Senior Director for Diversity Programs and Initiatives. And my visual description is that I am wearing glasses and have a gray button-down shirt. And then with me tonight is...
Hi, everyone. My name is Corey Rosas, he, him pronouns, and I serve as Associate Director for UCLA Alumni Diversity Programs and Initiatives.
So we're super stoked that folks are interested in relaunching our Pacific Islander Alumni Association, and we're really excited to be able to share some information with you all. And we hope that by the end of this session, you will be really interested in either volunteering as one of our board members or even just as a volunteer, or either that or helping to spread the word. So thanks for joining us tonight.
So to start us off, we'd like to begin with the land acknowledgement. The UCLA Alumni Association acknowledges the Gabrielino Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Tovangar. As a land-grant institution, we pay our respects to Hanuk Batam, Ahihiram, and Iohinkem, past, present, and emerging. And so now that we have introduced ourselves, we'd like to give some introductions about why this has begun. So initially, this restart of the network is an effort from the UCLA Pacific Islands Student Association. And their current president, Melody Satel, is the initial starter of this movement. And we are hoping that by doing this, we can also support the Pacific Islands Student Association in their efforts to bring more attention to the Pacific Islander community and to link alumni who are a part of the organization and generally a part of the Pacific Islander community once they have graduated. And so going into some of the board member positions that we hope to fill for this network, we have an executive team of 4 members that are required for all of our alumni diversity networks to exist. And for this network specifically, we would require a board chair, board vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. And then some other committees and chairs that we'll also discuss tonight include communications chair, fundraising chair, membership chair, university relations chair, a cultural and identity chair, a student alumni liaison, and student representative. And these are all positions that are optional to fill. We're really trying to fill the first 4 of the executive board to start getting this group together. And then as we begin to build, we'll hopefully be able to expand through the different committee chairs that exist.
Thanks. So I'll talk a little bit more about the mission of the Pacific Islander Alumni Association. And so the UCLA Pacific Islander Alumni Association aims to create a network of alumni that promotes the formation of professional, academic, and social relationships. We strive to strengthen the connections between our alumni and community leaders and members, as well as the schools, churches, and organizations serving Pacific Islanders. We also aim to increase opportunities and connections for Pacific Islander alumni through our connection to UCLA. And as Corey and I will talk later on tonight, there are many different ways that our networks seek to do that. And it not only involves student support and alumni outreach, but also regular outreach to the community, as well as starting different types of initiatives around advocacy and community building.
And so starting off with the executive roles, we have the board chair. And the board chair serves as responsible for conducting all activities and operations of the Pacific Islander Alumni Association, subject to the control and advice of and consent of the board of directors. So the chair basically serves as the head of the organization. They can also be seen as a president, and they shall make sure that the Pacific Islander Alumni Association is following through on their mission and vision. And the chair also guides that vision and the implementation of the mission through the support of programs, activities throughout the year.
Thanks, Corey.
Next, we have the vice chair. And in the absence of the chair, the vice chair for this network will serve as the chair in the absence of the chair. And in doing so, the vice chair will also represent Pacific Islander Alumni Association in university-related spaces. One of those spaces is the UCLA Alumni Diversity Advisory Committee. And that committee is a member of the major alumni committee for the UCLA Alumni Board of Directors. And as serving on this committee, they are representative for the Pacific Islander community as a member of the Diversity Advisory Committee.
The next role that we'll talk about is the treasurer. So it is the treasurer's responsibility to not only keep and maintain an adequate and accurate account of all of the properties and business transactions for the network, but it's also the treasurer's responsibility to oversee the network's accounts regarding its assets, any liabilities it may have, receipts, disbursements, gains, losses, capital, retained earnings, and other matters that are customarily included in financial statements. So really the treasurer's responsibility is to ensure that the fiduciary responsibilities and that the budget of the association is on track and taken account for. Next up, we have the secretary. So the secretary shall be the custodian of all records and documents of the Pacific Islander Alumni Association and shall act as a secretary at all meetings of the board of directors. They shall keep the minutes of all such meetings on file in hard copy or electronic format. They shall attend to the giving and serving of all notices of PIAA and shall see that the seal of PIAA is affixed to all documents, the execution of which on behalf of the PIAA under its seal is duly authorized in accordance with provisions of these bylaws. So essentially, the secretary maintains a really important role in not only documenting the different decisions that the board makes together and doing this through minutes, but they also play a really important function in terms of communicating with the board of the different types of advancements that they've made on said decisions, right? And it is the secretary's responsibility to also make sure that these records are maintained in accordance to the provisions of the bylaws.
So now we're going to move into some of the other board members and committee chairs. And again, these are all optional positions that we would love to fill after we fill the first four. And we'll start off with the first one, and that is the student representative. Like many of our other diversity networks, we hope to have a student representative that can sit on the board. And this would be a current student selected by the student population to sit on the Pacific Islander Alumni Association board with voting privileges.
The next individual we have is the student alumni liaison. And this individual will focus primarily on the development of relations and branding, as well as the understanding of PIAA's mission and values to relevant student organizations on campus. They will serve as the primary creator of student to alumni pipelining and engagement efforts through programming and partnerships with both campus and student leaders. So this individual will primarily work with students not only to help student organizations better understand what the purpose of PIAA is, but also to think about strategically ways that the Alumni Association can support student networks, organizations, as well as any of their efforts and initiatives to potentially strengthen the not only understanding what the Alumni Network does, but to ultimately act as a way to incorporate student interest in joining the Alumni Association when they in fact become alumni as well.
Next, we have the communications chair. And this chair would manage all promotional and marketing activities involving Pacific Islander Alumni Association, as well as website upkeep and social media presence for the network.
The fundraising chair is responsible for the fundraising strategy and execution of PIAA's fundraising efforts. So with board approval, the chair shall lead their committee in fundraising efforts for PIAA scholarships and operations funds through various best practices and in partnership with UCLA alumni and staff. So this role will primarily help to think of not only different programs, events, and ideas, but different ways that the network can do outreach efforts so that they can continue in building their legacy for their scholarship as well as ensuring that there are enough funds secured by the network to create and provide different resources, events, and programs to the community that will be really meaningful and impactful.
The next chair would be the membership chair, and the membership chair would be in charge of leading a committee to be responsible for recruitment of members, outreach, and social events. And the chair will also mobilize and extend the extended network of the board and the executive board and lead participation efforts and coordination. So they'll be rallying around the board members to try to get as many folks to participate in events as possible, reaching out to other community members that we might have in the UCLA community to participate in the network activities, and really focus on creating a positive social interaction among the board and its members.
Next up, we have the University Relations Chair. So this committee is primarily responsible for creating and maintaining partnerships with relevant UCLA departments, staff, and faculty, and monitoring new and existing UCLA policy relevant to the Pacific Islander community. So for this role, think of it as a bridge to the university, right? So not only thinking about different entities that exist on campus that the Alumni Association can partner with to increase efforts that benefit the Pacific Islander community, but also ensuring that they are relatively up to date and aware of the different events and occurrences that are happening on campus that are impacting not only the students, but how those types of events can reverberate throughout the community.
And then we have the Culture and Identity Chair. And this chair would be in charge of the culture and identity of the Pacific Islander Alumni Association as reflected in its program and board activities. So the primary role of this chair would be to form a committee around making sure that the identity of the Pacific Islander Alumni Association was carried out through all programs and activities of the board. And this can be through the form of putting on culturally relevant alumni activities and events, making sure that policies are inclusive of cultural practices of Pacific Islander community, and other things such as that.
So the next thing we'd like to discuss with everyone is the time commitment that's required by this opportunity, right? So there are many things to take into consideration should you decide to join the board. The first thing is that we ask all of our boards to meet at least once a month, and this can be done either online or in person. Specifically, if it's done online, our Diversity Programs and Initiatives department will support you all in providing you with notices, as well as Zoom spaces and things of that nature. In addition to board meetings, should you be the chair of a committee, the expectation is that your committee will meet additionally also once a month, either online or in person. For other board members who don't necessarily lead a committee themselves, they are still expected to support committees in any way that they are able to. Additionally, board members will attend network events outside their own committees to show support, right? And then lastly, depending on the position, there are external meetings and programs to attend, right? So earlier we talked about the Diversity Advisory Committee, but other events that board members may need to attend to better understand their role and ensure that they can fully utilize the resources that are available to them, as well as the communities that they're trying to serve, include the UCLA Alumni Leadership Conference, as well as the Diversity Network Orientation.
And so that concludes the portion of our presentation about each of the board positions. You may have a lot of questions specifically about the board positions, but also things like, what does this network do? What types of events are we planning to hold? And the great part about that is that as board members, you would be able to come up with those community events or ideas as a collective. And we have the support of the Diversity Programs and Initiatives team to help you through the planning and organization of all of those events as well. And so our email address is on the screen, and we hope that we will be able to see many of you in the future at our Pacific Islander Alumni Association network events. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and please don't hesitate to reach out to either myself or Corey for any questions that you may have. And we look really forward to relaunching this network with you, and we're super excited that you have decided to join us in this effort. Have a great night.